Snoop Dogg leaned back in his leather chair, the late afternoon sun spilling through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Los Angeles office, casting long shadows across the polished hardwood floor. The city sprawled below him, a glittering maze of glass and concrete, humming with the kind of energy that had fueled his rise from Long Beach streets to rap royalty. But today, his eyes weren't on the skyline. They were locked on the sleek laptop screen in front of him, where an email glowed in stark white against the dark background. The subject line was simple: Golden Wheels Complaint. Snoop's fingers hovered over the trackpad, his gold rings catching the light as he clicked it open. What he read made his jaw tighten. "Yo, Snoop," the message began. No formalities, just raw honesty from some cat who'd clearly been burned. "Heard you picked up that fancy car spot in Sunridge. Thought you should know they treated me like I didn't belong. Walked in with cash, ready to roll, but they looked at me like I was lost 'cause I wasn't rocking a suit. Told me to come back with proper paperwork. Man, I ain't never felt so small. That your vibe now?" Snoop leaned closer, his brows knitting together. The email wasn't signed, just an anonymous cry from someone who'd crossed paths with Golden Wheels, the luxury dealership he'd scooped up a month ago to add some shine to his growing business empire. He scrolled back through his inbox, digging for more. Another message, 3 days old. "Staff at Golden Wheels act like they own the place rude as hell unless you're dripping in designer." A text from his homie Dre popped up too, from last week. "Bruh, your new spot's got some bougie cats running it. Almost walked out." Snoop pushed the laptop away, letting out a slow breath through his nose. This wasn't the plan. He'd bought Golden Wheels to make it a palace of style chrome, horsepower, and swagger, where anybody with a dream could roll up and feel like a king. Not some stuck-up joint where folks got sized up and shut down. Snoop stood, pacing to the window, his sneakers silent on the hardwood. At 53, he'd seen plenty judgmental stares in his early days, whispers that a rapper couldn't cut it in the big leagues. He'd flipped those doubts into gold records, TV gigs, and now a business portfolio that had Wall Street types scratching their heads. Golden Wheels was supposed to be the next jewel in his crown, a flagship dealership in Sunridge, California, where the sun baked the streets and money flowed like water. But these whispers, these emails, they were like static in a clean track, messing with the vibe he'd envisioned. He'd trusted his team to keep it smooth, but now he wasn't so sure. He ran a hand over his braids, tugging lightly as his mind churned. The reports from his regional director, Reginald "Reg" Baxter, painted a rosy picture. Sales up, staff on point, customers happy. The reports were just paper, and paper could lie. Snoop had learned that the hard way, back when promoters shorted him on gigs and he had to show up himself to count the cash. This felt the same, too clean, too polished. He needed the real deal, the unfiltered truth about what was going down at Golden Wheels. And there was only one way to get it. Snoop turned back to his desk, snatching his phone and dialing Lila Torres, his assistant who'd been with him since the Thaw Last Meal tour. She picked up on the second ring, her voice crisp and no nonsense. "What's good, boss?" Snoop grinned despite himself. She always cut straight to it. "Lila, I need you to keep something on the low," he said, his tone dropping into that smooth drawl that meant business. "Don't let nobody at Golden Wheels know I'm the new owner yet. Not Reg, not the staff, nobody. We clear?" There was a pause. Then Lila's voice came back, curious but steady. "Clear. What's the play?" "I'm going in undercover," Snoop said, already moving toward the closet in the corner of his office. "Gotta see what's really poppin'. At my spot. They don't know my face up there, only dealt with suits so far. Time to flip the script." Lila let out a low whistle. "You sure? Sunridge ain't exactly your usual turf." Snoop chuckled, pulling out a gray hoodie with frayed cuffs, The kind he'd worn back in the day before the world knew his name. That's the point, fam. Fam. I want to feel it like a regular cat walking in off the street. Set me up clear my day tomorrow, and don't tell Reg I'm coming till I say so.
Got it, Lila said, the click of her keyboard already humming through the line. Need anything else?
Snoop glanced at the mirror as he tugged the hoodie over his head, swapping his tailored jacket for the worn cotton. Yeah, keep your phone close. Might need you to pull some strings. He hung up, stepping back to check himself out. The hoodie hung loose. The jeans he grabbed were faded at the knees, and a pair of scuffed sneakers replaced his custom kicks. He slid on a cheap pair of shades from a drawer, none of that designer glare, and topped it with a beat-up baseball cap, pulled low. The Snoop Dogg of red carpets and music videos was gone. This was just some dude, anonymous and unassuming. He smirked at his reflection, the wheels in his head turning. Sunridge was a 2-hour drive from LA, a sun-soaked city where Tech Brothers and Old Money mixed, and Golden Wheels sat smack in the middle of it, prime real estate for luxury rides. He'd picked it up on a whim, a chance to flex his business muscle, but he hadn't stepped foot in it yet. The staff knew a new owner was in play, but his name had stayed out of the paperwork handled through proxies and suits. Perfect setup for a little recon. If they were treating folks like the email said, he'd see it firsthand. And if they weren't, well, he'd know that too. Snoop grabbed his keys, not the ones to his Rolls-Royce Phantom parked in the garage, but to an old Toyota Corolla he kept for low-key runs. He slipped out of the office, nodding to the security guy on his way to the elevator. "Keep it cool, fam," he said, his voice casual, like he was just stepping out for a smoke. The dude nodded back, none the wiser. Down in the lot, Snoop slid into the Toyota, the vinyl seats creaking under him. He fired up the engine, the faint rattle a far cry from the purr of his usual rides, and pulled out into LA traffic, his mind already on Sunridge. The drive was smooth, the freeway cutting through golden hills as the sun dipped lower. Sunridge came into view just as dusk settled, a city of sleek buildings and palm-lined streets, the kind of place where wealth flashed loud but subtle all at once. Golden Wheels loomed ahead, its glass facade catching the last rays like a mirror. Rows of luxury cars gleaming out front, Lambos, Bentleys, a Porsche or two, all lined up like trophies. Snoop pulled into the lot, easing the Toyota into an unmarked spot at the back, far from the polished rides. He killed the engine, leaned back, and took it in. The dealership screamed money big windows, neon accents, a vibe that said, "Step up," or "Step out." But Snoop's eyes narrowed as he clocked a few employees through the glass, laughing near the front desk, their suits sharp but their energy off. He adjusted his cap, sliding the shades down a bit, and stepped out, the heat still clinging to the asphalt under his sneakers. The email echoed in his head. They looked at me like I was lost. He'd find out soon enough. With a slow, easy stride, he headed for the entrance, the bell above the door jingling as he pushed it open. The air hit him cool, crisp, laced, with leather and wax, and every head in the room turned his way. Snoop felt the shift, the quick once-overs, the silent questions in their eyes. Who was this cat? And what was he doing here? Snoop Dogg stepped into the showroom of Golden Wheels, the cool blast of air conditioning hitting him like a wave as the glass door swung shut behind him. The place was a cathedral of luxury, rows of gleaming cars stretched out under bright overhead lights, their curves catching the glow like they were posing for a photo shoot. A black Lamborghini sat front and center, its sharp edges screaming power, while a silver Bentley a few spots down whispered old-school class. The faint scent of leather and wax hung in the air, mixing with the low hum of chatter from a cluster of employees near the front desk. Snoop tugged his cap lower, his shades slipping just enough to let him scan the room without drawing too much heat. Every eye flicked his way quick, subtle glances that sized him up in seconds, and he felt it. That old familiar vibe of being judged before he'd even opened his mouth. He strolled deeper into the showroom, hands shoved in the pockets of his gray hoodie, letting his sneakers squeak softly against the polished tile floor. The staff went back to their huddle, their laughter picking up again. But Snoop caught the shift. A couple of them kept tabs on him from the corner of their eyes, like he was some stray who'd wandered too far from the block. He smirked, too, himself keeping it cool. This was what he'd come for, to see the real golden wheels, not the polished front Reg Baxter had been feeding him in those slick reports. He stopped by a Porsche 911. Its deep blue paint so glossy he could see his own reflection in the hood, and let his fingers hover just above the door handle, testing the waters. "Excuse me, sir." A voice cut through the air, sharp and clipped, like a whip cracking in the quiet. Snoop turned slow, casual, and there she was, Marissa Kane, striding toward him with the kind of purpose that said she ran this joint. She was mid-40s, sharp features framed by a tight bun, her navy blazer, hugging her like it was custom-made. Her heels clicked against the floor, each step a little louder than the last, and the clipboard under her arm gave her an air of control. Her smile was polite, tight at the edges, but her eyes, those told a different story, scanning him from cap to sneakers with a flicker of something that wasn't quite welcome. "Can I help you with something?" she asked, her tone cool, like she was doing him a favor just by asking. Snoop flashed a grin, keeping it easy. "Just here to look around, fam," he said, gesturing loosely toward the cars. Marissa's gaze narrowed, her smile twitching as she took him in hoodie, faded jeans, the whole getup. "Are you shopping for a car?" she pressed, her voice carrying an edge of doubt, like she'd already made up her mind about his answer. Snoop nodded, still smiling. "Something like that." Her lips pursed, just enough to show she wasn't buying it, and she shifted her weight, clipboard tapping lightly against her hip. "Well, we cater to a very specific clientele here," she said, her tone sliding into something smoother but no less pointed. "Most of our inventory requires pre-qualification. Perhaps I could recommend." Before she could finish, a younger dude in a crisp suit called out from across the room. "Yo, Marissa, delivery guy's here with the parts." Her head snapped toward him, irritation flashing across her face, but she swung her gaze back to Snoop quick, like she didn't trust him to stay put. Snoop raised an eyebrow, his grin widening just a touch. "You assuming I ain't qualified?" he asked, keeping his voice light, testing her. The question caught her off guard. Her eyes widened for a split second, but she recovered fast, her posture stiffening like she'd been called out in a game she always won. "I'm just trying to save you some time," she said, forcing that smile back into place. "These vehicles start at 6 figures. Maybe I can direct you to." Snoop cut her off with a nod, his expression steady, though inside he felt that familiar sting, the one he'd known since he was a kid getting side-eyed for dreaming too big. "Nice car," he said simply, stepping toward the Bentley and brushing his fingers along the door handle, slow and deliberate. Marissa's brows shot up, her smile faltering. "It is," she said, her voice tightening. "Perhaps when you're ready to make a serious inquiry, we can set up an appointment. For now, I'll have to ask you not to touch the vehicles." Snoop paused, considering her words, then stepped back, hands sliding back into his pockets. "8," he said, gesturing for her to keep going. "Let's hear it. What you recommend for someone like me?" Marissa blinked, thrown by the directness, but she rallied quick. "If you think you know what I need, I'm all ears," Snoop added, his tone still chill but with a little edge creeping in. Her facade cracked just enough to show the impatience underneath, and she straightened her clipboard like it was a shield. Maybe something more budget-friendly, she said, her voice dropping like she was letting him in on a secret. I can give you directions to a dealership that specializes in pre-owned vehicles. Snoop's lips twitched into a faint smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. He'd heard enough. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about every cat who'd walked in here and gotten the same cold shoulder. That's quite the assumption, he said softly, letting the words hang heavy between them. Marissa faltered, her confidence slipping for a beat, but she pulled it back fast, shoulders squaring. I'll be back with a list of options, she said, spinning on her heel and walking off, her stride brisk like she couldn't get away. Fast enough. Snoop watched her go, his expression unreadable, then turned back to the Bentley, catching his reflection in the glossy finish. This was gonna be a trip. He drifted toward the center of the showroom, hands still in his pockets, letting his gaze roam over the lineup Ferraris, Teslas, a Rolls-Royce that looked like it belonged in one of his videos. The staff picked up their chatter again, but Snoop caught the side eyes, the quick glances that said he didn't fit the mold. He was used to it. Decades of proving folks wrong had thickened his skin, but this was his spot now, and that made it hit different. Over by the desk, a young dude in a slim-fit suit, Darius Holt. Name tag gleaming, kept stealing looks, his brow creased like he was trying to play Snoop's face. Snoop kept moving, playing it cool, but he clocked it. Darius was sharper than the rest. Marissa came back a minute later, her clipboard clutched tight, her forced smile back in place. All right, she said, stopping a few feet away. I've compiled a few options that might be more suitable for your situation. Snoop tilted his head. My situation? Yes, she said, her tone clipped, handing him a printout used. Sedan's an old SUV, a compact hybrid, all priced way below the six-figure beasts around them. These are more accessible models, reliable, economical, practical. Snoop took the list, scanning it slow, his lips twitching again as he folded it and tucked it in his pocket. Appreciate the effort, he said, his voice even, giving nothing away. Marissa seemed thrown by his calm, but she pressed on, hands on her hips. Listen, she said, lowering her voice like she was doing him a solid. I'm just trying to be realistic with you. Golden Wheels isn't for everyone. I don't want to waste your time. Snoop met her gaze, unflinching. And what makes? You think I ain't your target customer? She hesitated, just a beat, then leaned in. I've been doing this a long time. I can tell when someone's out of their depth. Out of my depth, Snoop repeated, his voice neutral, almost amused. Interesting. Her eyes flickered with uncertainty, but she doubled down. I'm just being honest. It's better to be upfront than let someone leave disappointed. Snoop let out a soft chuckle, shaking his head. Honest, huh? I like honesty. How about this, you let me speak to the owner? Think we can make that happen? Marissa's eyebrows shot up, her smile tightening like she'd just bitten into something sour. The owner? That's not possible today. They don't just drop by for casual visits. They're a busy person. I'm sure they are. Snoop sighed, nodding slow. But maybe you could give him a call. Let him know I'm here. I think they'd want to meet me. Marissa's patience started to crack, her voice sharpening. Look, sir, I'm trying to be as polite as possible, but this is getting ridiculous. I have other customers to attend to. If you're serious about buying a car, we can schedule a meeting with one of our sales consultants. Otherwise. What? Snoop cut in, his tone still calm but with a steel edge creeping through. Marissa's eyes narrowed, her frustration bubbling up. Otherwise, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. The words dropped like a challenge, heavy and final. Snoop stood still, his gaze locked on hers, the showroom holding its breath. Then, slow as syrup, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Hey, he said, scrolling through his contacts. I'll make the call myself. Marissa blinked, her brow furrowing. "What are you doing?" "Just calling the owner," Snoop replied, lifting the phone to his ear. "Shouldn't take long." Her confidence wavered, confusion creeping in as she opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Around them, a few employees stopped what they were doing, Darius included, and watching the scene unfold like it was a slow-motion car crash. Snoop held up a finger, casual as ever. "Yeah, it's me," he said into the phone, turning slightly away. "I'm at the dealership. Everything's fine, just a little misunderstanding. Could you let him know I'm here?" He hung up, slipping the phone back in his pocket, and turned to Marissa with a faint grin. "They'll be here shortly." Her mouth dropped open, just a little. Who did you just call?" Snoop didn't answer right away, letting the question hang. As he glanced around the showroom, his gaze landing on Darius, who was now smirking like he'd just figured out a puzzle. "Guess we'll find out," Snoop said, his tone almost playful. The tension spiked, thick enough to cut, and Snoop stood there, cool as ice, waiting for the next move. Whatever came next, he was ready, and Golden Wheels was about to get a wake-up call it wouldn't forget. The showroom at Golden Wheels hung in a thick electric silence, the kind that buzzed in your ears like a live wire. Snoop Dogg stood in the center, his phone slipping back into the pocket of his gray hoodie, his shades low on his nose as he watched Marissa Kane's face twist from irritation to confusion. Her clipboard trembled slightly in her grip, her sharp eyes darting between Snoop and the handful of employees who'd stopped pretending to work, their heads craning to catch the vibe. Darius Holt leaned against the front desk, arms crossed, a faint smirk playing on his lips like he'd been waiting for this beat to drop. The air felt heavy, every second stretching out as the weight of Snoop's last words. "They'll be here shortly," settled over the room like a storm cloud ready to burst. Marissa opened her mouth, then shut it, her brows knitting tight. "Who did you just call?" she asked again, her voice sharper now, like she was trying to claw back control. Snoop didn't answer right away, letting her stew in it. He glanced around instead, taking in the showroom, the gleaming cars, the polished floor, the staff frozen mid-move like they just heard a record scratch. His gaze landed on a customer near the back, a dude in a faded jacket fiddling with his phone, clearly filming the whole thing. Snoop's lips twitched. "Good, let him see this." "Guess we'll find out," he said finally, his tone smooth and playful, but with an edge that cut through her bravado. She shifted her weight, her heels clicking once against the tile, her clipboard now a shield she clutched to her chest. "This is absurd," she muttered, half to herself, then louder. "I don't have time for games. If you're not here to buy—" Before she could finish, the glass doors at the entrance swung open with a soft whoosh, and every head in the room snapped toward the sound. A tall figure stepped in. Reginald "Reg" Baxter, regional director, his navy suit crisp as a fresh bill, his polished loafers clicking soft against the floor. His face was all business, but a warm grin broke through when his eyes locked on Snoop. "Snoop!" Reg called out, his voice booming across the showroom. As he strode forward, hand outstretched. "Man, good to see you, boss." Snoop met him halfway, returning the handshake with a firm grip, his own grin tugging at the corners of his lips. "Thanks for rolling through, Reg," he said, his drawl easy but carrying weight. "Appreciate it." The room stiffened like someone had hit pause. Marissa's clipboard slipped an inch, her eyes widening as the pieces clicked into place. Darius let out a low whistle, his smirk blooming into a full-on grin. The other employees exchanged quick, panicked glances, their whispers kicking up like static. Marissa's voice came out shaky, barely above a whisper. "Wait, Mr. Dogg?" She echoed, her gaze bouncing between Snoop and Reg like she was caught in a bad dream. Reg turned to her, his grin fading into something sharper, more professional. "Marissa, I see you've already met Mr. Dogg," he said, his tone clipped, finishing her sentence for her. Didn't realize he's the new owner of this dealership, huh? He shot Snoop a quick, apologetic look. I trust this wasn't the welcome you were expecting. Snoop raised a hand, stopping him mid-flow. It's all good, Reg, he said, his voice calm but firm, loud enough for everyone to hear. Me and Marissa just got off on the wrong foot, that's all. He turned to her, his shades slipping down a bit more, letting her see the steel in his eyes. Marissa's face went ashen, her clipboard dropping to her side as she took a step back. I'm so sorry, she stammered, her voice cracking. I didn't know. Didn't know what? Snoop cut in, his tone still gentle, but with a bite that made the room lean in. That I could own a place like this? That someone like me might actually belong here. Her eyes widened, her mouth opening but nothing coming out. The silence was brutal, stretching out as every employee, every customer, hung on the moment. Snoop nodded slow, like her quiet was all the answer he needed. It's fine, Marissa, really, he said, stepping closer, his voice dropping just enough to pull everyone in. But let me ask you something. If I wasn't the owner, if I was just some cat off the street, would you have treated me any different? Would you have given me the same respect you'd give some dude Rollin? In here with a suit and tie? Marissa froze, her hands trembling now, her sharp edges crumbling under the weight of his words. She didn't answer, couldn't, and Snoop let it hang there, the question echoing off the glass walls. He turned to Reg, his voice picking up. A new authority. Let's gather everybody in the conference room, he said, his drawl steady but commanding. Think it's time we had a little chat about how things run around here. Reg nodded quick, clapping his hands once. You heard the man conference room now. The employees shuffled toward the back, their polished shoes scuffing the tile, a mix of curiosity and dread rippling through them. Marissa lingered, her face flushed, her clipboard clutched like a lifeline as she trailed behind. Darius caught Snoop's eye as he passed, giving a small nod like he'd known something. Was up all along. Snoop smirked back, tipping his cap slightly, then followed the group, his sneakers silent against the floor. The customer with the phone kept filming, a grin spreading across his face like he'd just struck gold. The conference room was all sleek lines and glass walls, a space built to impress with its long mahogany table and plush chairs. Today, though, it felt like a pressure cooker as the staff filed in, taking seats with stiff backs and darting eyes. Marissa slipped into a chair near the back, her usual confidence swapped for a nervous stillness that made her look smaller. Reg stood by the door, arms crossed, his expression unreadable as he watched the team settle. Snoop took the head of the table, standing tall, his hoodie and cap a stark contrast to the suits around him. The murmurs died fast as he cleared his throat, his gaze sweeping the room like a spotlight. Thank you all for joining me on short notice. Snoop started, his tone measured but firm, that signature drawl wrapping every word. For those who don't know, my name's Snoop Dogg, and I'm the new owner of Golden Wheels. A ripple of surprise ran through the group gasps from a few wide eyes from others. Marissa sank lower in her seat, her face burning. I came here today dressed like this for a reason, Snoop went on, gesturing to his hoodie and jeans. Wanted to see how this spot runs when nobody knows who I am. Wanted to feel what a regular cat might feel walking through them doors. He paused, letting it sink in, his shades glinting under the fluorescent lights. What I felt today. Disappointing. I got judged not for what I could bring to the table, but for how I looked. And I ain't here to point fingers, but we gotta talk about what that says about this place. His eyes flicked to Marissa for a beat, then back to the group. This ain't just about me. It's about every person who walks in here, every customer, who don't fit some picture in your head of what a luxury buyer's supposed to be. A young sales guy, Chris, his name tag said raised a hand, hesitant. Snoop nodded at him. Go ahead, fam. Chris shifted in his seat, his voice shaky. Mr. Dogg, I think most of us try to treat customers fair, but sometimes it's hard not to make assumptions, you know? Snoop nodded, his expression softening just a touch. I feel you. We all got biases. Ain't nobody perfect. But here's the thing. It ain't enough to just try to be fair. We gotta step up, challenge that mess, make a spot where everybody feels respected, no matter what they rockin' or where they from. He let the words settle, then leaned forward, hands resting on the table. This dealership's got a rep for excellence, but excellence ain't just about the cars we sling. It's about the vibe we put out there. From now on, that vibe's gonna be respect, inclusivity, fairness, no exceptions. A few heads nodded, a murmur of agreement rippling through, though some faces stayed tight, unsure. Snoop's gaze landed on Marissa, her hands clasped tight in her lap. Marissa, he said, his tone gentle but firm, I want to give you a chance to speak. Anything you want to say? All eyes swung to her. She hesitated, her voice barely a whisper when she finally spoke. I made a mistake, she said, her cheeks flaming. I misjudged you, and I'm truly sorry. Snoop nodded slow, his expression unreadable. Thanks for that, he said. I hope this sticks with all of us, not just you. Change starts with owning it. He straightened, turning back to the room. Going forward, we're setting up new training, making sure this place reps the values I stand for. Every customer gets dignity. Period. Anybody got a problem with that? Now's the time to holla. The room stayed quiet, the hum of the AC the only sound breaking the stillness. Snoop let it stretch, his point sinking deep, and stepped back from the table. 8, he said, his voice calm but resolute. We on the same page now. Let's make this work. The staff started to file out, a mix of relief and tension trailing them. Marissa hung back, her eyes meeting Snoop's for a fleeting second before she slipped away. Snoop watched her go, then turned to Reg with a faint grin. We got some work to do, fam, he said. Reg chuckled, clapping him on the shoulder. You ain't kidding, boss? Snoop stepped back into the showroom, the cars gleaming like silent witnesses to the shakeup. He'd come for the truth, and now he had it along with a chance to turn this joint around. Golden Wheels was his now, and he was just getting started. The sun hung low over Sunridge, casting a golden haze across the glass facade of Golden Wheels as Snoop Dogg stepped out of the conference room, the echo of his words still lingering in the air. The showroom felt different now, not just quieter, but lighter, like a weight had been lifted off the polished tile floor. The staff dispersed slow, some whispering among themselves, others stealing glances at Snoop as he stood there, hands in his hoodie pockets, shades low on his nose. Reginald Reg Baxter clapped a hand on his shoulder, his grin wide. You stirred the pot good, boss, he said, his voice low but warm. I ain't gonna forget that anytime soon. Snoop nodded, his own grin tugging at the corners of his lips. Ain't about forgetting, fam, he said, his drawl steady. It's about changing the game. He glanced around. The cars gleamed under the lights, the Lamborghini still flexing its sharp edges, the Bentley sitting regal a few spots down. This was his turf now, and he wasn't about to let it slide back into the mess he'd walked into. Marissa Kane lingered near the back, her clipboard tucked under her arm, her sharp features softened by something that looked like shame. Darius Holt was already moving, grabbing a stack of sales folders from the desk like he'd been waiting for a green light to shine. Snoop caught his eye and tipped his cap. Darius nodded back, a spark of respect flashing between them. Reg, Snoop said, turning to his regional director, set me up a spot here for the next few weeks. I'm staying in Sunridge, gonna make sure this vibe sticks. Reg raised an eyebrow, but his grin didn't fade. You serious? Thought you'd be back in LA by tomorrow, kicking it. Snoop chuckled, shaking his head. Nah, man. Can't. Just drop the mic and bounce.
Gotta put in the work, show 'em how we roll. Reg nodded, pulling out his phone. I'll get you an office upstairs, some gear, whatever you need. You call in the shots now.
Snoop didn't waste time. By the next morning, he was back at Golden Wheels. Ditching the Toyota for his Rolls-Royce, this time no more undercover, just Snoop in his element. He rolled up in a black-on-black Phantom, the chrome rims catching the sun as he parked out. Front. Heads turned, employees peering through the glass, a few customers snapping pics as he stepped out, his hoodie swapped for a tailored jacket, shades still low but the cap gone, braids swinging free. He wasn't hiding anymore, but he wasn't here to flex either. He was here to build. First move was a meeting with Lila Torres over the phone. "Lila, fam," he said, settling into a small office upstairs, the window overlooking the showroom floor. "Get me some trainers, top-notch cats who know customer service and how to check biases at the door. We're rewriting the playbook here." Lila's voice crackled through, all business. "Got it. I'll line up a crew experts on inclusivity. Service vibes. When you want 'em." "Yesterday," Snoop said, half grinning. "Make it quick, 2 days, Tox." She laughed. "On it, boss. Anything else?" Snoop leaned back, glancing down at Marissa moving stiffly between desks below. "Yeah, keep tabs on Reg. Need him tight on this." The trainers rolled in by Wednesday, 2 pros, a sharp-eyed woman named Carla and a laid-back dude called Jamal, both with years of turning stuck-up spots into welcoming joints. Snoop kicked off the session himself, standing at the head of the conference room. The staff packed in tight, Marissa front and center this time, her clipboard nowhere in sight. "Hey, fam," he said, his voice filling the space. "We're here to level up. Ain't nobody getting fired yet, but we gotta flip how we do things. Every cat who walks in here gets the red carpet, no matter what they rockin'. That's the Golden Wheels way now." Asterisk Carla took the floor, breaking down bias, how it sneaks in, how it shuts folks out. Jamal ran role plays, putting staff through scenarios, a dude in sweats with cash, a young mom eyeing a Porsche, an older guy who didn't look the part. Snoop watched Marissa squirm during one, a fake customer asking about a Bentley, her old instincts kicking in before she caught herself, softening her tone. "Good catch," Jamal said, nodding. "That's the shift we want." By the end of day 1, the team was buzzing, some skeptical, some fired up, but all feeling the heat to step up. Next, Snoop scrapped the pre-qualification rule, Marissa's go-to excuse for gatekeeping. "Anybody can test drive," he told the staff, leaning against a Tesla in the showroom. "They got a license, they get a spin. No paperwork dance." First, a few sales reps, older cats set in their ways, grumbled, one muttering, "That's how you get tire kickers." Snoop overheard, stepping in close. "Tire kickers today might be buyers tomorrow," he said, his voice low but firm. "You don't know their story, don't write it for 'em." The dude backed off, nodding stiff, and Snoop knew some weren't gonna vibe with this. Sure enough, 2 quit by week's end, but he let 'em go quiet. The rest? They started to gel. Doris stepped up fast. Snoop clocked his hustle kid, had a nose for people, reading them without the judgment Marissa leaned on. By week 2, Snoop pulled him aside. "Darius fam," he said, leaning against the desk in his office. "You got eye-sharp ones. How you feel about assistant manager?" Darius blinked, his grin splitting wide. "For real? I'm been waiting to do this right." Snoop clapped his shoulder. "Raise kicks in next week. Keep that energy, help me steer this ship." Darius nodded, already scribbling notes, and Snoop knew he'd picked a winner. Marissa was trickier. She stayed, but her edges were raw quiet. In meetings, stiff with customers. Snoop gave her space, watching from upstairs as she fumbled through the new rules. Then, one afternoon, he caught her in action, a young dude in a hoodie, not unlike Snoop that first day, asking about a Ferrari. Marissa hesitated, her old instincts flaring, but she took a breath, smiled real this time, and walked him through it. Snoop saw the sale close an hour later, the kid beaming as he signed. He nodded to himself. Progress, slow but real. Week 3, Snoop threw a curveball, an open house. Golden Wheels Day, he called it, blasting it on socials and local radio. Free test drives, no strings, come vibe with us. The staff balked, Marissa especially. We'll get chaos, she warned, her voice tight. Snoop grinned. Chaos is where the magic happens, fam. Trust me. The day came, and Sunridge showed up. Families, teens, old heads, a mix of colors and styles rolling in. Darius ran point, smooth as butter, while Marissa worked the crowd, her smile less forced now. Snoop jumped in too, hopping in a Lambo with a kid who'd never sat in one, letting him feel the roar. By sundown, they'd moved 3 cars and booked 5 more, word of mouth spreading like wildfire. The numbers started climbing, sales up 15% by month's end, foot traffic doubling. Customers noticed the shift, reviews trickled in. Felt like family. No snob vibe here. Snoop caught a moment that stuck with him. A black family, mom, dad, 2 kids test driving a Bentley, laughing as they piled in. Marissa handed them the keys, no hesitation, and when they left, the dad shook Snoop's hand. Never thought I'd feel this welcome here, he said. Snoop nodded, his chest warm. That's how it's gonna be, fam. Not everyone bought in. Some staff lagged, stuck in old ways, but Snoop kept pushing. He met Marissa one-on-one, her office door shut, the air thick. You're still here, he said, leaning back in his chair. That means something. You in or you just coasting? She looked up, her eyes steady for once. I'm in, she said, voice low but firm. I messed up, I know that. I want to make it right. Snoop studied her, then nodded. Actions over words, Marissa. Show me. She did slowly, selling to folks she'd have turned away before, her sharp edges softening with every deal. By the time Snoop's month in Sunridge wound down, Golden Wheels was humming different, faster, friendlier, alive. He stood in the showroom one last afternoon, Reg at his side, watching Darius coach a new hire. Marissa chatting up a customer like she meant it. You pulled it off, boss, Reg said, his voice proud. Snoop shook his head, grinning. We pulled it off, fam. Team effort. He glanced at the Bentley, the same one he'd touched that first day, and felt it, the vibe he dreamed of. Finally taking root. This wasn't the end, though just the start. He had 12 more spots to hit, and Sunridge was proof he could flip anywhere. 6 months later, Snoop Dogg rolled back into Sunridge, the late afternoon sun dipping low, painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple. The Rolls-Royce Phantom purred as he pulled into the Golden Wheels lot, its chrome rims flashing against the asphalt. He stepped out, shades low, a crisp white tee under his jacket, braids swinging free as he took in the sight. The dealership glowed literally, with new neon accents he'd greenlit last month, and figuratively, with a buzz that hadn't been there before. Customers milled around the showroom, some snapping pics of a matte black Tesla, others chatting, with staff who moved with a new kind of ease. Snoop grinned slow, sliding his hands into his pockets. This was his joint now, and it finally felt like it. He pushed through the glass doors, the bell jingling soft, and the vibe hit him warm, alive, like a track with the perfect beat. Darius Holt stood near the front, clipboard in hand, directing. A new hire with the same smooth confidence he'd shown back when Snoop tapped him as assistant manager. Keep it tight, fam, Darius said, his voice steady, then caught Snoop's eye and broke into a wide grin. Boss man, didn't know you were dropping by, Snoop chuckled, dapping him up. Gotta keep you all on your toes, D. House? It holding up? Darius nodded, proud. Smooth as silk, sales up 30% since last quarter. We good. Snoop scanned the room. Marissa Kane was over by a silver Bentley, walking a young couple through the specs, her smile real now, not the tight mask he'd seen that first day. She caught his gaze, gave a small nod, and went back to her pitch, her posture looser, like she'd shed a layer of armor. The showroom hummed, customers of all kinds, from a kid in a hoodie to an older cat in a tracksuit, mingling with the staff like they belonged. And they did. Snoop felt it deep, a warmth spreading through his chest. This was what he'd fought for, a spot where the doors swung wide, no questions asked. He drifted toward the Bentley, the same one he'd brushed his fingers against 6 months back, and leaned against it, letting the memory play out. That first day, Marissa's cold shoulder, the staff side eyes, the sting of being sized up in his own house, had lit a fire he hadn't expected. He'd come to check the pulse, but he'd ended up rewriting the rhythm. Golden Wheels wasn't just a dealership anymore. It was a statement, a blueprint for what he wanted every spot in his empire to be. He pulled out his phone, dialing Lila Torres as he watched the scene unfold. "Yo, Lila," he said when she picked up, her voice crackling through with that familiar no-nonsense edge. "What's good, boss?" she asked, keys already clicking. In the background, Snoop grinned, leaning back against the car. "Sunridge is poppin', fam. Golden Wheels is the move, sales up. Vibe right. Time to take this show on the road." Lila laughed soft. "Knew you'd flip it. What's the plan?" Snoop's eyes traced the showroom, landing on a family test driving a Porsche, the kids giggling in the back seat. "We hid in the other 12 spots, same deal. Undercover first, then we build. But this time, we doing it right from jump." "Got it," Lila said, her tone all business. "I'll pull the files, locations, staff, reports. You want trainers lined up?" Snoop nodded to himself. "Yes, and crew Carla and Jamal. They know the play. Start with the Bay Oaklands next." He hung up, slipping the phone back in his pocket, and took a slow breath. 6 months of grinding, training, hiring, firing, tweaking had turned Golden Wheels into a model he could roll out wide. But it wasn't just about the numbers. Sales were up, sure, but the real win was the stories trickling back. A dude who'd been turned away before posting on X. "They welcomed me like fam, this time bought my dream ride." A mom raving on Yelp. No snobs, just smiles. Snoop stepped outside, the evening air warm on his face, and spotted Marissa wrapping up with the couple. They shook her hand, beaming, and drove off in the Bentley, the engine purring smooth. She walked over, hesitant, her sharp blazer swapped for something softer, a navy top that matched her new vibe. "Mr. Dogg," she said, her voice steady but quiet. "Didn't expect you back so soon." Snoop tipped his head. "Had to see it for myself, Marissa. You holding it down?" She nodded, a faint smile breaking through. "Trying to." "That?" "Sale first time I didn't second-guess the customer. Felt good." He studied her, seeing the shift still sharp, but less brittle. "You showed up," he said, his tone even. "That's what counts. Keep it real, and we straight." She met his gaze, her eyes clear. "I will. Thanks for not cutting me loose." Snoop shrugged, grinning. "Second chances, fam. Just don't waste it." She nodded, heading back inside, and Snoop turned to the lot, the sun sinking below. The horizon, painting the cars in a golden glow. This wasn't the end, just the start. Golden Wheels had gone from a cold, exclusive joint to a place where anybody could roll up and feel the love. He'd taken a risk, stayed, built something real, and now he had a playbook to hit the rest of his spots, 12 more chances to flip the script. Snoop slid into the Phantom, the leather cool against his back, and fired it up, the rumble vibrating through him. He pulled out slow, the road stretching wide ahead, Sunridge fading in the rear view. He'd come here looking for the truth behind a shaky rep and found a way to rebuild his dream, one car One smile at a time. Snoop's ride through Golden Wheels ain't just a dope tale. It's a lesson carved in chrome and grit. He starts with a hunch, a whisper that his new spot's gone sour, and instead of sitting pretty in Olay, he dives in, hoodie on, to feel the sting himself. That's the first gem. Real leaders don't hide behind desks. They step into the mess. See it. Own it. Snoop could have fired Marissa and called it a day. But he didn't. He saw past her snap judgments to the hustle underneath, gave her a shot to grow. That's hard. Knowing people ain't perfect. But they can change if you give them the tools and the why. The story's soul is all about respect, breaking down walls folks build with their eyes before their hearts get a say. Marissa's shift. Darius's rise. The customers who went from outcasts to kings. That's the juice here. It's human as hell, showing how a little trust can turn a cold machine into a family. Snoop's past, those days of being underestimated, fuels his fire. He's not just fixing a dealership. He's rewriting the rules for anybody who's ever been told they don't fit. And the lesson? Don't just talk change, do it. Live it, make it stick. Golden Wheels went from a snob shop to a spot where dreams roll off the lot. And that's power. This ain't fiction for kicks. It's a mirror for anybody running a crew, a biz, or just their own life. You gotta show up, see the flaws, and build something better. Not 'cause it's easy, but 'cause it's right. That's why we're dropping these joints on Legacy Stories to spark that fire, to share tales that hit deep and leave you thinking. Loved Snoop turning golden wheels into gold? Want to hear more about folks flipping the script, beating the odds, making legacies that last? Hit that subscribe button on Legacy Stories. Join the fam. Drop your thoughts. Share it with your people. We're here to keep the stories coming, raw and real, every week. Thanks for riding with us. See you on the next one, where the grind meets the glory.